Yeah. Here we go.
Well, I guess it's time. Welcome to the vernal equinox edition of the Tucson Macintosh User Group meeting. Is there anybody here who's here for the first time other than Dan? I think I recognize everybody else. I would like to introduce Dan, our special guest and guest presenter for the evening. Although, Dan, I'm not sure how to pronounce Wassink.
You got it. You nailed it.
Oh, okay, good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most people, I shouldn't say most, but 50-50, it's Wassink. How do you spell that?
Well, I've been looking at it for a month going, how do I say that?
Well, I spent years trying to figure out Wozniak, and so that probably some influence there.
Dan is he does a lot of this kind of stuff. He also is the originator of Dan's Tutorials, where there's over 1,800 tutorials and a whole bunch of movies and videos about the Mac and about iOS and about tech in general. And he is a very knowledgeable guy, and you can get access to all of his stuff for a reasonable amount of subscription dues. And even better is he has given us a coupon code for, I think it's 25% off any plan. And the code is really difficult, so you better write this down. It's TMUG. So since Dan is in the Eastern time zone, and it is certainly past my bedtime in the Eastern time zone, I'd like to put him on right away and have him give us some insights into photos for Apple computers. So, Dan, please take it away.
All right, thank you. I'm going to share my screen here. And everyone can see me all right, and we're good, right?
Looking good.
All right. Let me just do a quick check here to make sure you can see my Mac, right?
Yes, we can.
All right, perfect. All right. So, yeah, I'm going to be, I put in here photos on the Mac. I think Bob saw something that I presented a while back, and it was on the photos for some other group. But I do have my iPad and iPhone here as well. So, we kind of can cross there. I run a pretty loose ship when I do these presentations. So, yeah, so this is going to be on photos on the Mac, iPad and iPhone as well. And first of all, a little bit about me. As Bob said, I am Dan Wassink. I have over 30 years publishing, between online and magazine publishing. That's where I really started out, was online publishing, magazine publishing. And then I transitioned over into online publishing. I also am a former Apple genius. So I worked at Apple retail for about 3 years. And then I started developing my own apps, ironically being tutorials. And when you work for Apple, you can't develop your own apps, just like any other company. They consider it their property. I mean, nothing surprising there. So I had to make a decision of, stay with Apple or kind of do my own thing. And I decided to do my own thing. So I quit Apple and just started doing these tutorials. They're no longer in the App Store primarily. Apple, in their infinite wisdom, decided that they did not want to have any tutorials, tips, lessons on Apple hardware and software. So they started rejecting everything. And it's not only me, it's with other ones too. So you still find a couple loose ones out there, but it's not like it used to be. And you'll end up pulling your hair out dealing with the app review store. So I moved everything online. So basically, I am owner of Dan's Tutorials. I'll make this real quick. I used to be Noteboom Tutorials, my wife's name, and I thought, everybody knows me by Dan, so I changed it over probably about 4 or 5 years ago to Dan's Tutorials. I do have over 1,800 videos available. I also do host online classes and webinars on a regular basis. Like this coming Thursday is going to be just an Ask Me Anything where people just ask questions. They go for about an hour, and then the following week, I'm going to be doing one on ChatGPT. So I alternate between AMAs and different topics. So, but you can find all this stuff out over at danstutorials.com. So that's a little bit about me. So let's get to why I'm here. What we're going to look at here are, basically the Photos app and how we can have it help us manage all of our photos. I consider myself a hobbyist photo. I love photography, and I love the challenges of it. I understand most of what is going on with f-stops and all that, but I am not a photographer by trade or anything like that. It's more just fun for me. So I was here a little bit earlier, and some people were in camera club, so they're probably going to be able to talk circles around me on how it all works. But I'm going to try to help you at least see what you can do with the Photos app. I'm pretty impressed with what you can do with the Photos app. It's not a Photoshop, don't get me wrong, but it is pretty impressive what you can do with it, and it's primarily all I use. So what we're basically going to take a look at is where your photos and videos are stored in your photos library. Then what we're going to look at is our different options for viewing our photos. I have on my personal library, I have a demo library that I'm going to be showing here, but on my personal library, I have over 35,000 photos. It's 180 gigabyte. So, how do you find photos that you want to look for? And I've gotten pretty good. So I'll show you some of my favorite tips for finding photos. We're also going to look at how you can keep them organized. And, it's so easy to take a photo these days. It's not like you're buying some film and you paid precious money for this. So you're going to try to get the best shot. Instead, what you're going to do nowadays is you're going to take 10 shots and hopefully one of those is good. Well, all of a sudden, if you keep doing that, your photos library is going to just get huge. So I'm going to show you give you some of what I do to help kind of keep my photos organized, tips on that. We're also going to look at how we edit our photos and videos. There's actually quite a few editing tools that are available in the Photos app. And then we'll look at, sharing your photos. So that's going to kind of be the agenda that we're going to look at. I will pause every once in a while for questions. If you have questions, I do try to keep track of the chat. I'm pretty good multitasker. I'm not the best, but so if someone has a question and I miss it, just holler, that kind of thing. So, all right, let's get to it, and let's take a look at our first thing, which is going to be where are your photos located? It's some of you probably know this, but I thought I'd start out with the basic. Are they in a folder? How does all this work? So when we go over to my Air, and I'm going to show you on my MacBook here, on the iPad and iPhone, you can't get at where your photos are stored. They're stored internally and you can't get at them. But on the Mac, they are stored in your Pictures folder here. And everything is stored in this Photos library. So on my personal account, all 35,000 photos and videos are in this little library here. This is actually what they call a package. And what I'm able to do, if I hold down the Control key, and I don't recommend this, is you can actually open this and you can get in there and see all of the different photos and all that. But be very, very aware, cautious when you do that, because you could break things. There are a ton of files in here, and all you have to do is just mess up one and the whole thing could go haywire. So what you want to do is basically just leave this alone. Now, the reason why I like to show people this is if you wanted to back this up, everybody should be using Time Machine or something like that. But also what you can do is if you have an external hard drive, you can actually just take this photos library and drag it somewhere else. And it's going to take all of your photos over to that other hard drive. So this is an easy way to back up your photos and videos to a second hard drive. Just drag it over somewhere and you're good to go. It'll just copy it over there. And then you can keep using it. On the iPad and iPhone, it is not in that you can't get at it. They're actually stored in the iPad, somewhere in their hidden folder structure. So you're not able to get at it for those. So, but that's basically where everything is stored. So if you wanted to export something out, of this, you don't go into the Photos library, and I'll show you how you do this towards the end. What you do is you go into the Photos app, and then you can export it out from there. You can drag and drop. You can export through the menu bar, things like that. So you kind of want to stay away from that, but it's nice to know that that's where everything is. All right. Now let's take a look at different options for viewing our photos. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our Photos app here. And we're just going to take a look at this interface, just kind of run around, some of these things I'm sure you're familiar with, and some of them maybe not. So basically what we have here, when we go across the top, is we have a shared library. This is relatively new. I'd say probably 3 months. And what you're able to do with a shared library is basically you can have 2 different libraries, and you can share one with other people. So my wife and I actually have a shared library. So when I take a photo, I go into a photo here, what I'm able to do is move this photo over to the shared library, so then it's on her phone. Now, this isn't a shared album, it's a shared library. So it's like a full-blown library. You're getting to get all the full res versions, things like that. So basically, it's like you have 2 different versions, and this is a way that you could share. Beth doesn't want to see all of my photos, and I don't want to see all of Beth's photos. But what we do use it for is when we go somewhere and she wants to share a photo with some of her friends or something like that, I can just put it into the shared library, and then all of a sudden she can access that photo. Next to that is actually one of my favorite tools, and this is the thumbnail aspect ratio. So right now you're going to see that I can actually see what the aspect ratio of all these different photos are. So this one's tall, this one's looks like square, this one is your typical landscape. Do I have any panoramic ones in here? I'm sure I do somewhere. There's a panoramic one. And this is all kind of nice because you can actually see the aspect ratio. But what I like is when you turn this on or turn it off, I don't know exactly what you want to say. What it does is it groups them all together. So now I get a nice square grid. Everything is cropped into the square, and I can see all of my photos. I'm not able to see the aspect ratio, but all I have to do is just open it up and I can see the photo. So if you have a couple ways to view your photos: aspect ratio or just square. When you do see them in the aspect ratio, you can also see the name of the photo. Not that that really matters, but you can also zoom in and out. Of course, we all know that, and pinch and zoom. I'm sure we all know that. Over to the right, we have our years, months, and days. This used to be called moments, collections, and years, and Apple kind of got away from that, thankfully. I think it was a little confusing. I had a lot of questions of what is a collection? What is a moment? And this came from the old iPhoto. A moment was when Apple would determine that you took these photos within the same time period at the same place, so it considered it a moment. So it was doing some little algorithms in there and all that. Well, now what they do is they just group them together by year, months, and days. So I can go to years here, and I can view all of my photos by year. Click on any one of them, and now I can see them by month. And you're going to see that the slider went to month. And then I can go by day, and now we can see them by day. And it's kind of grouping them together. It doesn't show all the photos. To see all of the photos, what you have to do is go to all photos. So if I were to double click on this, I'm still not seeing all of the photos in Gatlinburg or the Great Smoky Mountains. But if I go to all photos, now I can see all the photos within that time period. So that's our years, months, and days. Nice way to just kind of go through your photos. If you know that you went somewhere for a year, and I'll talk a little bit more about this when you're searching for a photo, really all you have to do is just go to the years. I just did this the other day. We were on a cruise somewhere a while back. I think it was a cruise we were talking about, and we couldn't remember what year. So basically Beth said, well, it was in 2000 something. So I was able to go to 2000 something, and then I was able to go and find that cruise. I actually went into days, and I could find where that cruise was. So that's a nice way of finding your photos. Keep going over to the right. What we have here is info. What this will do is this will give us all of the metadata for those of you who are familiar with cameras. When you take a photo, what it does is it embeds in there through metadata what lens was taken, which camera took it, where it was taken. If it was taken with a smartphone like an iPhone, they'll add GPS location to it. So it has all of this different information, the f-stop. And when you click on a photo here, oops, let's go to this one here. When you click on this eye, what you're going to be able to see is all of the information. So this was taken with my Panasonic GX7. I can also see which lens I took it with. And I'm able to see what ISO the camera applied on it, where the lens was, what the f-stop was, and the speed. So we can get all of that information from this get info. On top of that, now I did add a location to this. My Panasonic doesn't have a GPS on it, but you're going to see that I was able to add the location to it. To add a location, let's go and find one that doesn't have a location. Let's see here. Got to have, oh, here one. All right, this is over in Saugatuck, which is just south of us. So if I wanted to assign this a location, all I have to do is just go over here to assign location, and I type in Saugatuck, and it puts it into the general vicinity. Now I can go and pick up this pin and drag it and place it where I want, but generally what I do is, I think it was right around here. Generally what I do is I just put it in the general vicinity, and you'll see where that comes in when we're looking for photos. It's one of my favorite ways to look for photos is the maps. All right, we keep going over to the left. We have our share icon. This is where we can share. Nothing new there. We can favorite a photo. This is how one of the ways that I keep my photos organized is I use this as an accept and reject option. I don't favorite them. I just accept them. And then when I want to show my photos, if I take 100 photos, I know people only want to see 10 or 15 of my favorite photos. So what I'll do is I'll just go and favorite 10 or 15 of those. That's my accept and reject. And then excuse me, then eventually what I'll do is I will delete some of the older ones. So I'll talk about that in a little bit. Rotate, I can easily rotate it by 90 degrees. We have auto enhance. So this is where it'll just go and apply its own algorithm. Might brighten it up. It might, you can see it brighten it up there. Click on it again. And then it brings it back to its normal. Talk a little about that when we talk about adjustments. Basically, it's making multiple adjustments to it. That's what Photos calls when we go and adjust the brilliance or adjust the saturation. They're called adjustments. And then we have our edit, puts it into edit mode, and then we can make all of our adjustments. We'll get into that shortly. Over on the left, we have our sidebar, and this is basically where we have all of our different albums. So you're going to see that I have my library here. When I click on the library, what I'm basically seeing here are all of my photos. I do have to go to all photos here, but I'm looking at all of my photos here. So if the only photos that are not going to show are, you can hide photos, but for just basically, let's keep it basic. This is where all of your photos are. So if I were to open this up on my personal computer, I would have 35,000 photos and videos here. I mentioned photos a lot, but this does also encompass videos. So I don't want to forget them. But over on the left, what we are able to do is then kind of whittle that down. So the library is the all-encompassing everything. But now what I want to do is I want to see them by memory. So this is like moments, collections, and years I mentioned earlier. Memories kind of replace that. Apple created all of these memories here. And then what I'm able to do is view all the photos that I took when I went to St. Martin and St. Kitts. So I can click on this, creates a little slideshow. There's the music. And it's just creating those. I can favorite that by clicking on the heart. So this kind of gives me those moments, collections, years that Apple is creating. Could be birthdays, holidays, things like that. We also have people. So this is where I can go and view all the photos of Beth or of myself. We have places. I can see all my photos on a map. Talk about that a little bit. Favorites, my recents, imports. Here are my hidden ones, which is now locked. You can, so someone can't look at those photos without unlocking it. And same thing with recently deleted. Below that, we also have our media types. I want to see all of my videos. Just click on videos. I can see all of my videos. I'd like to see all of the photos that were taken in portrait mode with an iPhone. There they are. These are what are called smart albums. So as I take photos, it'll add these photos to it automatically. If I take another photo and I put it in portrait mode, it's going to show up in this album automatically. I don't have to add it. So I consider these smart albums. Here are my bursts, any photos that I took with a burst. Screenshots is a favorite one. You take a photo or a screenshot, they're all going to show up in here. Now, I think that this is a really good one because we've all seen it where, we're on our iPhone here. And what do? We just squeeze it. I want to power it off. What do? I squeeze it. I want to turn the volume down. I squeeze it. Well, if I have my hand right there, guess what I've just done? I've taken a screenshot. We probably all have too many screenshots on our iPhone. So now what we're able to, I shouldn't say now, but what you're able to do is go into your photos album and you can find all those screenshots that you may have taken accidentally, and you can just go and delete them. And then below that, we have our shared albums. This is where we can create an album and then we can share it with other people. And then we have our own albums. So these are just, my own albums that I created. And then our last option down here is projects. This used to be far more extensive. Whoops, you're not looking at my, sorry. There we go. Albums, shared up above it, and projects. Projects used to be far more extensive. You could create books and things like that. Basically, the only thing you can do with it now is create a slideshow. That's pretty much it. If you want to create a book or anything like that, what you need to do is click on the plus, go into the App Store. You're going to see that if I wanted to create a calendar, the only way I can do it is by going to the App Store and downloading a third-party app. Could be from Shutterfly, something like that. Then what you're able to do is create a project. Create a calendar or anything like that. The only thing we can do natively is create a slideshow. That's it. Everything else needs an app from the App Store. So that's kind of the interface and how things are organized on there. Let's take a quick look at this on the iPad. The iPad is actually very similar. I'm using iPad OS 16, Mac OS Ventura, I should tell everyone that, and iOS 16. So I'm using all the latest software on this. If I go into my photos here, you're going to see that I have a lot of the same features. I got my sidebar here on the left. Pretty much has everything that I can do on the Mac. I can't create presentations. It doesn't have everything, but it actually is pretty good. You can actually do quite a bit on the iPad and the iPhone. The iPad and iPhone are pretty much on par with each other. So I have my library here. I can hide the sidebar. I have my years, months, and days across the top. Tap on a photo. I can go and edit it. I can go and auto enhance it. I can view information about it. Here's all that metadata. And I have the location in there. Let's get out of there we go. I have the favorites. I can view all my photos across the bottom. Oh, and I want to move this to a shared library. I can move it to my shared library. So we have a lot of the same features that we do on the Mac, just not everything, but it's surprising how much you can do on there. So that's basically how we get around the Photos app. Now let's take a look at how we can keep our photos and videos organized. So what can you do when you have 35,000 photos and all of a sudden, things are going awry. You don't know what to do with them. Well, basically, the way that I do it is I will go into this little thumbnail view here, and what I like to do, and this is, you have to get in the kind of the habit of it. And I tell this to a lot of people because, like I said, it's so easy to take too many photos. So I go somewhere, what I will do is I will, here's tulips. Do I really need to have both of these tulips here? There might be a different angle. I might have duplicated it, things like that. So what I will do is I will just go and start deleting them. Or if I'm not sure, let's see here, I do have a lot of duplicates, but that's because I want to show things off. With this here. So this is down in Key West where we stay. And when I open this up, you're going to see that just a little different angles. So what I use is the arrow keys here, and you're going to see that this is favorited. So what I'll do is I will go through here and favorite them. So let's just go and unfavorite them. All right, so we're going to start from scratch here. So I have this one here. Well, okay, that one's good. Well, I like that one better. So then what I do is I just go and favorite it. You can use the period key to favorite it. I don't have to actually click on the heart up here. I keep going. I don't like that one. Yeah, okay, that's all right. And this is basically how I whittle it down. And I'll just be like, okay, now that one is very similar to that one. It might actually be a duplicate. And there's, one different aspect ratio. So this is how I like which that one has a little better sky. So I'll keep that. I'll keep that one as a favorite, but I will not favorite this one. So now I kind of go through that. And then all I have to do is just go over here to my favorites. And if I'm showing somebody our trip, it's just going to show me those photos that I selected. So it's an easy way to, whittle down your photos when you want to show them to someone. The favorites is kind of like saying an accept and reject thing. So what do you do with the ones that are rejected? You're going to see that we do have a little heart here in the corner. So what I'm able to do here is actually go through here and be like, well, this one doesn't have a heart. I'm just going to get rid of this one. And I delete it. So I can easily go through them and figure out which ones I no longer want to keep. How do we find photos? Let's take a look at how we find photos. So now that we have them all organized, that's great. What I would like to do is show some pictures that I took when we were at Disney. But I don't remember what year that was. What year was that again? Well, as I said, what we can do is we can go to our months, days, and years, and I can kind of scroll through them. But again, I don't remember what year. My wife has a better memory for that kind of stuff. And so that's not going to work for me. Well, what we can do is go over to my favorite way of doing this. My brother actually taught me this, places. Well, I know we went to Disney and I know where Disney is. So I can go over here to places and I just zoom in on the map. And you're going to see that here are all my pictures from Disney. Here are all my pictures from Cape Canaveral. And these could be from multiple years. All this is doing is just showing me the photos that are in this location. So it could be 2012, it could be 2013, it could be 2023. This thing doesn't care. It's just showing you where the photos are. Now, when I go in here and dig deeper, you're going to see that it splits out. And what I am able to do now is click on these here, and it's going to show me, let's try it again. Sorry, I click on grid here, and now I can see all those photos. That's not Orlando. There it goes. Maybe you just click on it. I was double clicking on it. So here are all the photos from that particular area. If I go over to the right here, click on it, there are all the photos from that particular area. Well, I know that we were north, we went to NASA, so here they are. And there's all those photos. Now, let's say you took some photos that do not have the geolocation. So what you can do is, if you have a digital SLR, this is for the photography people. a little tip that I learned years ago when I use an iPhone primarily for everything now. But what you can do is you can take a photo with your iPhone to reference the location. So now I know that this photo here was taken over at Cape Canaveral. I can go and look at the date here. And now what I'm able to do is go over to my months, days, and years and look at that particular date. And I'm going to see all the photos, even if they don't have a geolocation. So we can use the maps kind of thing as a starting point. So if you take photos with a regular camera, also take it with your iPhone. Just take one so you have a reference. And then from that point on, you're going to be able to find all of your other photos. So when we're on our cruises, I don't, back then I didn't take my iPhone. So what I would be able to do is just find a photo from my iPhone and then find all the other photos that go along with it. Another way of searching for your photos is using the search. Apple actually goes through and tags your photos for you. Now, the Photos app does have keyword search. You can add titles to it, but generally speaking, I don't see a lot of people doing that. I don't read a lot of people, they're not doing that too much anymore. And the reason is Apple, at least in my mind, Apple does a pretty good job of tagging these things for you already. So we have a friend that has a Rottweiler, and I know I've taken some pictures of that dog. It's a cute dog. All I have to do is just go ROT, and then you're going to see Rottweiler, and there is the dog. I did not tag this as a Rottweiler. Apple did. It recognized that that was a Rottweiler dog, and now what you're able to do is go and search for that. So let's go with, my friend has a Jeep. This is when we were out in Arizona just a couple months ago. I'm not sure why this one is tagged with a Jeep. I wonder if there's a Jeep in the background. It thinks that something back there is, could it be that that's selecting that Jeep? That's interesting. But anyway, you get the idea. You could go horse. So you can kind of get an idea. You can also search for locations, landmarks, things like that. It will recognize landmarks in the photo. So you could actually search for Cinderella's Castle at Disney, and it might find that as well. So that's a really easy way to find your photos. And again, what this will find all of your photos that have a horse in it. But now what I'm able to do, I'm looking for a specific time, and I don't remember that time. What I am able to do is look at the date here, and then I can go to the date and see when that photo was. I go back over to my library, and now I'm able to go and find that photo. So the maps is a great way of finding your photos. Maps along with search. Those are my two favorite ways to find photos. Before we get into editing, does anyone have any questions on any of that? Looking pretty good. All right.
Dan?
Yeah.
If you don't see shared library in both libraries in the upper left corner, do you need to set up a shared library? I don't see that.
Yes. Yep. Are you using macOS Ventura?
Yes.
And you do need to be using 13. I think it came out in 13.1.
Okay.
But yes, you do have to set that up. And the way that you set that up is you go into your Photos settings. This is the new preferences.
Okay.
You're going to see shared library up there. Very easy to set up. This one is obviously all set up, but
okay.
All you have to do is just follow the steps. It really is very easy to set up. Essentially, what you can do is you just add participants. They're going to get an invitation. They accept that invitation. Then what they're going to be able to do is contribute to that library. It's not a shared album. It's, like I said, it's a library. They can edit photos. They can delete photos. Now, when they delete a photo, it will not, if you put the photo up, they can't delete your photos, but it'll alert you that the person wants to delete it. So it's not like they can just go and delete everything. So they did take precautions with that. But
Cool.
here's a delete notification. So you'll get a notification. I think it's, this is something back in the day. Sorry. We all have our friends that probably, 10 years ago, they shared an Apple ID. And the reason why they shared it, especially with the Photos app, is because they wanted to share their photos. That seemed to be the typical story that I always heard. And I would be like, no, don't share yeah, but how are we going to share our photos? I'm sorry, but I don't, not that, because it causes more problems than what it's worth. Well, now don't have to worry about that. You can actually create a shared library, so they can still have their separate Apple IDs, all of their separate contacts and things like that, but they are able to have a shared library, just like you can have a shared reminders list, a shared calendar. Basically works the same way.
Does that require you to have iCloud photos turned on? Because I'm also on Ventura and I don't see shared photos on mine.
It might, yes. I'm going to say yes, it does, because it's all done in the cloud.
Another comment is the photo that you have up. If you
Yeah.
look in the window right above the brown horse's head, it says Jeep Tours.
Ooh, a well-recognized text as well.
I guess it does.
Yep, good catch. So yeah, that's the whole thing. It's really quite amazing what they can do with this. And supposedly Apple does it all on the computer itself. They respect your privacy, and all the machine learning and all that is done on the computer itself. So this did not go up to the cloud and search and then bring it back down. That did it all on the computer itself.
Is the aspect ratio button only something that showed up recently? Because Monterey, I don't find that.
I think it's been there for a while. It only shows up. Let's see if it shows up with an album. Yeah, it does. I think it's been there for a while, because this is something that I've used for a long time.
I have it in Monterey. It's just in a different spot.
Okay.
It's way over on the left of the bar. You say photos, days, months, years, and then a zoom slider, and then the aspect ratio thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I must not have it on in preferences or something.
Also, I should mention there's filter here too. This is a powerful tool. So when you're in your albums, and I'll talk about albums after we talk about editing, when you're in an album here, what I'm able to do is show all of my favorites. So let's say I'm on that cruise, I can dump all of my 200 photos into an album here, and then all I have to do is just select favorites here, and it's going to show me only the ones that I favorited. So again, back to that showing friends, that kind of thing. This is how you could easily do it. Dump all your photos into an album. So then you have your cruise photos here. Could have 200. This one has 33. It's my demo account. But if I wanted to go and just show all my favorite ones, all I have to do is just go over here to favorites. And now I'm looking at 8 photos. Real nice way to view them. You can do this on the iPad and iPhone. I'll show you on the iPad. But basically, I go into an album, and let's go to tulips here. And if we go where they have the dots, we should have filter. And that same kind of thing shows up. So I can easily show just my favorites. And same thing on the iPhone. So. All right, so let's get into, yeah.
I find my places is not populated at all. I go to one place, that's in South America, and all they have 19 photographs there, and I know they got millions more. Is there some way to update that?
No, it should. So what I would do is go to your library here and find one of those photos that should be there, and tap on the little eye here. I wonder if it actually doesn't have any metadata. That's how it finds it. So it's either there or not. So my guess is that photo, here's another thing you can do. So I'm skipping it. No, albums. So let's talk about albums before I get into, because I want to talk about smart albums. So we'll hold off on the editing side of it. So, we know how to create albums. That's pretty simple stuff. We click on the plus here, create a folder, and then we can drag items in there, that kind of thing. Pretty simple stuff. But what we can also do is create our own smart albums. We can only do this on the Mac. Now, where would this come in handy? Well, what you might want to do is find all of your photos that don't have any GPS location data, like what you're talking about. Which photos don't have GPS location data? I was just helping out somebody, and he was using Dropbox for all his photos. So I said, let's just all put them into the Photos app. And what he does is he takes pictures of his receipts. And so I said, well, let's create a smart album, and I'll show you how you do this shortly. Let's create a smart album and have it look for the word receipt. Now, it's not going to find every receipt, but it can look for words like that. And then he was just like, oh my God, there's all my receipts. I mean, not all of them, but there they all are. So you can create albums, smart albums that will automatically populate, much like these, as you take photos. If it has that criteria in there, it'll automatically add it to that smart album, including, like I was talking about with the GPS. If it doesn't have any GPS data, it'll automatically add it in there. So how do we create these smart albums? And again, we can only do this on the Mac, and we can't view our smart albums on our iPad and iPhone. So this is 100% exclusive to the Mac. We go up to File here. You're going to see that we have New Smart Album. So all I have to do is just select this, and I name it. So I'm just going to go with no GPS. All right. Now, what I have to do is I have to put the conditions in there. So right now, by default, it's going to go, the photo is a favorite. Well, we don't want that. We already have a favorites photo. But if we wanted to have an album that had our photos that were not favorited, all I have to do is that. And now it's going to put in 328 photos because those are how many are not favorited. So that's kind of how this works. So let's go back over to the GPS. So we can see we have a lot of different options here. So I'm going to go with photo and tagged with GPS. I don't want it to be is. Right now I have 261 photos that are tagged with GPS. I have 114 that are not. So now when I click on OK, the little gear indicates that this is a smart album. I click on it. Here are all my photos that do not have GPS. So what I'm able to do with these, I know that, let's see, this was taken, I'll just go with Phoenix, so I can go assign location. I don't know if you saw what it did there, but it removed it from that album.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So now you're able to kind of go through there and do that. You can also, so let's say, look back on your trip to South America and you have a lot of photos that are not tagged. You select them. So I have all these photos selected here. What I can do is assign a location to all of those at the same time. So I could put in there, Phoenix, Arizona, and now all these photos. So let's go ahead and do that. They all disappeared. And when I go to places here, guess what we're going to see in Phoenix? There they are. No, that's not Phoenix. Well, they should show up there. They will show up there eventually, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how you can go and add the GPS data, and then they'll go in there. So that's the power of smart albums, and you can actually add multiple criteria. So you could go favorite photos that do not have GPS. So those are the ones that you really want to have a GPS. So you could go and combine those and create that smart album. Again, Mac only, not on the iPad and iPhone. But it is some pretty powerful stuff. And, you know, when I was talking with Mike, he was very happy. I never even thought about it for receipts because I don't take pictures of my receipts, but he does. And he said, this is just great. I can just go over here to my album and I can find all my receipts. Like perfect, you know, kind of thing. And he could have gone in here. So with that, let's go and edit this. This is how you edit a smart album. What I can do is go in here and say text starts with receipt. Most receipts have what on them? Tax, tip, you know, so maybe it doesn't have the word receipt, but I would go any, so it needs to match any of these, not all of these. So I would starts with receipt, text starts with tax. Just add a bunch of keywords in here. And text starts with, I don't have any in here. Let's go tip. I don't have any like that, but you know, if I did have that in there, I'd be able to, let's go and see if it finds that word Jeep. Let's go back to that. So I can go text. I like starts with. There it is. So now when I go, okay, that's how it found the Jeep. Good catch. That's how it did it though. It found that text in there. So that's another way that you can use that, you know, some of the smart albums in there. All right, before I get into editing, anyone have any questions on albums, smart albums, anything like that? All right, well, let's go to editing. Basically what, you know, the editing of the photos is, like I said, it's really pretty powerful. There's a lot that you can do. So let's go to, I have an album here where we have some edits. And let's go to adjustments here. Okay. That's not the one I want. Here we go. This is the one I want. All right. So these photos all have various issues with them in my mind. You know, photography is all subjective, right? So, let's first take a look at adjustments. So we're going to go look at this photo here. This photo is a little washed out. This is over in Mexico. So this, I was using a different camera with this. It wasn't my iPhone. This is with a GH3. And I was probably trying something manual. And like I said, I'm a hobbyist and I make mistakes. It looks just washed out. So I need to edit this. Well, first thing that you can do is you can use the auto enhance. And the auto enhance actually does a pretty good job most of the time. So I click on it. And we can see that it brightened it up. I click on it again to turn it off. So that's the first thing that we can do. But also, if we go into edit here, we have a lot more adjustments. I'm actually going to close these, so I'll show you where they are. And how many? Let's see here. As you can see, we've got a lot. It's no Photoshop. We don't have any layering. I wish I had layering, but we do not have any layering. So that's probably the biggest thing. Here's our histogram for you, for the camera people out there, photography nuts. And when I click on the auto enhance, what we're going to see is, watch this histogram here. You're actually going to see it kind of readjust there. So that'll get you started, and it'll actually do a pretty good job. But we can take this further. If I go down to the left of each one of these, we actually have more tools. So when I go to light, what I'm able to do is take the slider here and slide it. Let's go ahead and auto enhance it. I always like to start with an auto enhance. And now you're going to see that slider moved. And I can go in here and make further adjustments. Now you're going to see that it's not just lightening the whole thing up. It's actually making minute little adjustments. Some things it is, and depending on which direction I'm going, it could be adding saturation, could be adding highlights, it could be taken away from the shadows, all depending on the photo. And we can see that when we go down to options here, I can actually see everything that it's doing. So watch when I drag this little slider here, watch all these little dials go. You're going to see they're just kind of, that is Apple, that's the Photos app analyzing that photo and kind of getting it where you want. So it's not just a broad, let's lighten this thing up. Now what I'm able to do is actually take this further, and I'd be like, I like where that is, but I think that it has a little too much brilliance. I can actually take this and move it back down a little bit, and it'll leave everything else the same. I can turn everything off. All I have to do, you're going to see that when I went into auto enhance, what it did is it applied some light. This is what that checkbox is there. That's the blue checkbox. It also made some color adjustments. That's the blue checkbox there. I can turn these off individually. So I'm going to turn off the light adjustments, but it still has the color adjustments. And if I want to see the color adjustments, I can go down and I can actually see the color adjustments. I want to add them back in, click on the checkbox. I want to go back to auto, and I can go in auto adjustment. So we have a lot of different options here. So you may just see, if you don't click on the options thing here, what you may see is just color, and you're like, well, where's the saturation? I want to adjust the highlights, that kind of thing for the photography people. Well, you can do that. All right. So black and white, we can retouch photos. That very, very crude version of, let's go to, I think it is, we've seen it where we can take things out of a photo. That's what retouch does. It's pretty weak by today's standards, but I can take this little eyedropper here. I make my brush size nice and small. And all I have to do is just go like that. And you can see that it took that ship away. The newer stuff can do so much more. A new one would be able to take this dock right out. You'd be able, if you had a Photoshop or anything like that. And I mean, it does a pretty good job there. You want to get it as small as possible. And if I were to zoom out, but if you zoom in, you can kind of see right there where it didn't do such a good job. So it's not perfect, but you can retouch photos. And this would be what I would call for dust and specks and things like that. I wouldn't say you want to remove anything, but if you have dust and specks, I think it's great for that kind of thing. Red eye, we don't see too much of that anymore. That's the flash, your blood vessels on the back of your eye when you take a photo with a flash. Especially with today's cameras, they're so good at night photography. The flash is rarely used, but you can get rid of. So Beth has red eye there, as I do, I think. And what I'm able to do is go over to red eye. If I click on auto here, it detected our eyes and it took the red eye out. I can also click on the little caret. I can do it manually because sometimes it doesn't catch that right away. So you can do that manually. So you do have that. You have your white balance. We have our curves, levels, and we can adjust the levels in here. Again, a little bit above my pay grade, but some of you are probably familiar with that. So you can actually see it does quite a bit. Selective color. Now I'm a little sunburned here. So what I could do is select my skin tone here, and I'm able to reduce that a little bit. And it's theoretically only reducing my skin tone, it's not really affecting my shirt too much because it's only affecting that red. We can't isolate it. I can't say just to my face. This is, a Lightroom, Photoshop kind of thing where I can actually just isolate it. But what I am able to do is just kind of go through and take a look, broad strokes. If you ever want to compare any editing that you've done, you can go up to the upper left-hand corner, click on it, and you can see the original. And you can see I just took out some of that red there along with the red eye. We can also, with any adjustments that we make, any cropping that we make, straightening the photo, adding filters, we can always revert back to the original. Any editing that the Photos app does is non-destructive. So it just adds a layer on top of it, and we're always able to go back to the original. We can't go back in steps. Like I can't say, well, go back. It's not a history brush like what we have in Photoshop. But what we are able to do is just say, I want to start over, and I can go and start over. And noise reduction and sharpen, low light conditions, you might have a little bit of noise, so you can reduce the noise in there. And then actually, my sounds kind of silly, but my favorite is the vignette. When I go to this photo here and edit it, I'm going to auto enhance it, brighten it up a little bit. And I like to add a little vignette to it. Vignette, for those who aren't familiar with it, what it does is it darkens the corner just a little bit. So let's focus on the subject, in this case here, the jet. So I click on auto, and you can just see, I'm going to compare. If we look, you can see just that the corners are just a little bit darker, not anything extravagant. And you are able to go and adjust this as well. So there's a lot of adjustments that you can make with the Photos app. Anybody have any questions on adjustments? All right, let's take a look at filters. So filters allow us to apply filters. Let's go to a different photo here. We're going to go with this photo. So this is Silverton and Durango over in Colorado. It's kind of a neat photo, but I think this would look really good if I added a filter to it, such as made it black and white, a noir filter, or even applied like just a warm, make it a 70s-ish kind of an old photo. That's what filters allow you to do. So I'm going to go to edit here. And what we need to do is go up to filters here. When I click on filters, we have all of my different filters here. Now, again, this is non-destructive. So what you're able to do is just go and make, try different things out. So let's go with vivid here. Ooh, I don't like that one. Vivid warm. Okay, now we're getting a little bit, that older look. Let's go with vivid cool, dramatic warm. All right. But my favorite is noir. I think this looks really good as noir. What we are able to do with this is also adjust how much of that filter is in there. So I can go all the way over. Now it's just a noir. Now, it's still a little bit bright for me. I can go back over to my adjustments. And when we go to contrast here, you do have to have your light open and your options open, and you see all of this other information. I can adjust my contrast, and we can see now we're getting like an older look to it. Let's go and reduce the brightness a little bit there. And we're going to add my favorite effect down towards the bottom, the vignette. And when I compare, there's the original. And I just think that has just a much nicer look to it, or much better feel for what, when we're on that train. I mean, it's a true coal-powered train. And it's where Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid were filmed. Some of the canyons, were, so this kind of gives that a much better feel than what that does. And basically I was able to do that by just applying filters and adjustments. Now, this is where it gets really kind of neat. Okay, that's kind of cool. And I would like to apply that to this photo too, but I don't want to have to go and do that all again. You don't have to. I can go over here to this photo. And if I control click on it, get the contextual menu, what we have is copy edits. So it's going to copy the edits, not the actual photo. And now I go over to this photo. I control click. Paste edits. Watch what happens. Made it black and white. Now the contrast on this one is a little too tight, too dark. So I can go in here and now make further adjustments. So let's go and back off that contrast on this one just a little bit. And now with minimal editing, I was able to go and create a couple neat little effects for those photos by copying, doing it to one, getting me there, copying those edits and putting it on another. And that's just done with filters and adjustments. Let's take a look at crop and straighten. We'll first go with straighten. Straighten's pretty simple. Crooked, probably had one too many beers there. And go to edit. We go up to crop here, and I'll show you where all these tools are on the iPad shortly. I go to crop. What I'm able to do, crop, you're going to see that I have straighten here, and all I have to do is just drag this to the left or right, and
Cool.
now it is straight. Pretty simple to do. Let's look at cropping. With cropping, what we can do is just drag any one of the corners and crop it however I want. This is how it is by default. This is a free form crop. I can change the aspect ratio, do whatever I want. I particularly don't care for that. I like to keep it the same aspect ratio, or maybe I want to change the aspect ratio for an iPhone or for my TV 16:9. I have no idea what this aspect ratio is right here and how it's going to look on something. So generally, I don't like to keep it at freeform. This is where all the different aspect ratios are. So let's go and drag this back out. All I have to do is just pinch. And I want to make this for my TV 16:9. So I just click on this. And now it's going to be locked to that aspect ratio. So I can sit here and drag it around and put it where I want. On top of that, what I'm able to do is use the rule of thirds. So some of you are probably familiar with it. How many are familiar with the rule of thirds? All right, perfect. So those for you that are not, the rule of thirds it's an old photography, I don't want to say trick. It's not a trick. It allows, you want to line up your items with the rule of thirds. So basically what you're going to have is a tic-tac-toe board. And you can put this on your iPhone. So when you're taking a photo, you'll see that tic-tac-toe board. That's using the rule of thirds. So what I'm going to do is click here, and you can see that I have that tic-tac-toe board. So the idea, and I'm just going to give you a real broad stroke here on it. The idea is you want to have, your horizon possibly at the top vertical line, the top third, or at the bottom. And the reason is you want to put the focus on the sky, or you want to put the focus on the water there. Rarely do you ever see a good looking photograph where the horizon is in the center. It's going to be one or the other. Also, you want, like you're taking a picture of somebody's face, you want to have the eyes at these intersection points right here. It's a good way of putting it. Rarely do you see a photo where someone is just directly in the center. Usually they're over on the side. If you ever were to lay a tic-tac-toe board on a photo, you probably would all of a sudden start seeing like, oh, okay, they put that right on that horizontal line, that vertical line. So basically what you're able to do when you crop here is kind of use that rule of thirds. So you can see that. I was able to use that, and now the focus is on the water there. Let's take a look at this at another one. we're going to go to this one here. So this looks cool and all that, but watch what happens when we use the rule of thirds. And all I have to do is just pull up that tic-tac-toe board. So I go to edit here and go to crop. I want to, we're going to keep it the original aspect ratio. And what I'm able to do is just pinch in here, and I'm going to put the end of that pier and the water right down on that line there. So now we can kind of see we have a nice, again, I know it's subjective, but basically that's what you are doing when you move these things around and use the rule of thirds. And again, look at any painting, even you'll start seeing that people are using that rule of thirds. Does anyone have a better explanation? Somebody's laughing, but they're muted. Is it Kurt? Okay. So so rule of thirds, you can easily use that with the cropping. You can also, with the crop, you can also flip your photos. That's the vertical and horizontal here, and revert back to the original. It removes any cropping, anything like that. So again, anything that you do is safe. If you wanted to have two different versions, what I recommend doing is duplicating the photo. So this is one reason why you may want to duplicate a photo. So I could just control click, and then from here, I should be able to duplicate this. And once I duplicate that, I can make one for the iPhone, vertical, and another one for the TV landscape, kind of thing. Or make one black and white and another one, keep it in color. That's the way that you would apply multiple edits to a photo. You basically have to duplicate the photo. Now, you may have noticed that when I clicked on this, the screen kind of darkened. You're going to see that I have a little white line going around there. I can now lift the subject. This came out in macOS Ventura 13.2. So what I'm able to do is copy the subject. So it just copied that pier. And if I were to go into my Notes app here, as an example, there's the pier. So we can now do this on the Mac. This came out on the iPad and iPhone a while ago, but we can now do it on the Mac as well. And that's with the control click. Let's take a look at how this works on the iPad. I'm not going to go through everything on it, but you'll be able to see that you can do a lot of the same stuff. Not everything. This is where a lot of the similarities start to end, is with the adjustments. So let's go to my adjustments here. And what we're going to do, you're going to see that my photo is there that I made black and white. If I go and edit it, I am able to revert this. And when I do that, brings it back to color. Even though I did that on the Mac, being that I'm using iCloud Photo Library, I was able to go and undo that. So I go back into edit here. This is where our just different adjustment tools are. It's on the left, not at the top, but here are my adjustments. And over here are all my different adjustments. So here's contrast. Here is shadows. So it's not, we don't have as many tools, but we can, go in there and make these different adjustments here. And just drag that up and down. You can see I'm making that adjustment. So I'd have to go in here and do this manually, kind of thing. So we can do that. We also do have auto enhance. That's the first one here, auto enhance. So now I just did an auto enhance. And if we look here, you're going to see how much of that adjustment it applied. And what I'm able to do is go in here and either turn that auto enhancement off for that particular adjustment, or what I can do is go and make further adjustments. So again, just like the Mac, I can start out with auto enhance and then kind of fine tune it myself. If we go over to the left, we have my filters. And again, I can adjust how much of that filter is applied. So let's go with my noir. I have my cropping tools. Same thing. I can flip them here. I have my different, this is a straighten tool. And when I go to
Oh,
the crop, it's a free form. But if I go up here to this little square here, I can I can lock the aspect ratio. So let's just do this real quick here. I made adjustments to that. I made it black and white. Let's go and make an adjustment. We're going to adjust the contrast. And yeah, I'll go with that. I could adjust the shadows to bring the blacks out a little bit, but I'm just going to skip over that. Go with a little vignette in there. Tap on done. And now we're back at how we were. If I wanted to copy this, I can do that as well. If I long press. Oops, let's try this again. Is it not a long press? Nope. Long press allows me to copy, lift the subject. So it must be. Okay. Under the More button here, I can copy those edits. And then I can apply them to other photos, just like I can on the Mac. We can even do this on the iPhone. I said the iPhone is very similar feature-wise to, let's do install a software update. I don't want to do that. So let's go to my photos here. And we're going to go to edits. We can see we have my black and white photo. If I go to edit, what I'm able to do is make all my adjustments here. I have all of my cropping tools and adjustments and filters down at the bottom, so I can go and crop it here. I have the same aspect ratio tool at the top. Just swipe to straighten it. I can flip it, rotate it. So again, we can start on the iPhone, start on the iPad, and continue anywhere else. And even though that the Mac has more tools than the iPhone or iPad, we can start on the Mac and continue with minor adjustments on the iPad and iPhone. So it pretty neat how they've kind of incorporated this. I think, when they went from the iPhoto to Photos, when Apple did that, they took away some of the features in the Photos app, but I think it was to bring these on par with each other. And so hopefully they'll bring back some of those other features. All right, let's take a look at sharing our photos. So how do we share them? So we're going to go back over to my Mac here. And let's say I wanted to share this photo here. Probably it depends on how you want to share it. So if you just wanted to export this out, generally what I do is drag and drop. And it exports it out. Okay. But you can also go up to export here, and you do have a different option. Export the photo or the unmodified photo. So what's the difference here? Well, let's go to my black and white. When I drag this photo out, it's going to drag the modified version out. So it's the black and white version. Well, what I'm able to do is export the unmodified version. And when I do that, we'll put it on my desktop here. It is going to be the color version. So we are able to export either version. And when it does the unmodified version, it's going to be uncropped. It's going to be the basic photo that you started out with. So that's one way. Now, let's say you wanted to share it with someone. Okay, well, if you wanted to, all I have to do is just click this, and you're going to see we have the share button here. And what I'm able to do is airdrop it to someone, messages, email it to someone. If I were to email it to someone, I am able to set the image size. Sometimes these photos can get quite large, and mail won't send them. There is a limit to how large a file can be sent in email, and it's not an Apple thing. Google, all of them have limits. So with the new phones, iPhone 14, and if you go with the Pro Raw and the 48 megapixel, you really could have a photo that is 100 megabytes. That's not going to go through mail. Well, what you're able to do is go and modify or, send a smaller version of it. So I'm going to go with medium here. And now we can see that it is going to be 176 kilobytes. Let's see what it was when it was original. Now, so it's not that big of a file, but 941, but it did cut, it cut it down 20% of what it was roughly. So, if I were, it does also cut the size down, but even if I go large, it's about half the size, a little over half of what it was. So you can reduce the size of your photos when you do mail them. And then we have shared albums. So with shared albums, what you're able to do, so here's my shared album. I can create an album and then add the photos in there, or I can select the photos and then add them to a shared album. So it doesn't really matter how you start. So let's just go with these photos here. And again, when I'm talking photos, it is photos and videos. You can make those adjustments on videos. You can do basically everything that I showed you on videos as well, including the auto enhance, all that kind of stuff. Add filters, you can do it. So I want to share these photos here. Now, all I have to do is just select them, and then I go to, where is it? Create, nope, share. There we go, shared albums. So I just select this, and which album do I want to share it with? These are albums that I've already created, but I'm just going to go and create a new one. So I just go new, and this is, I'll just call this Tucson. I know it's not, but we're going to call it that anyway. And I invite the people. So what I'm able to do is click in here. And if I had Bob's email address, I'd be able to select him. He would get an invitation. He would have to accept that invitation. And then once he accepted that invitation, the album would show up over here in the shared albums, and he'd be able to view it. On top of that, when you create a shared album, you can, so this one's already shared. This one is shared with a couple people here. Being that I'm the owner of this album, I'm the one who created it. What I'm able to do is add more people. I can also allow subscribers to post. So Beth is able to add to this album. If I created that other album and invited Bob, what I would be able to do is allow Bob to post to that. So we can create a combined album in there and, collaborate, I guess you could say. If you want to receive notifications with any changes, you can set that up. And for the people that do not have an iPhone, or maybe you just want to create a public website, you can do that as well. So when I go to public website here, takes a few minutes. It's building an iCloud link. All these are stored in iCloud, and you do need iCloud for this to work. You're going to see that I have this link. And if I were to share this link with any one of you, you'd be able to click on it in your favorite browser and view those photos and videos, whatever are in this album. And as I add more photos and videos to it, you would be able to see those on that album. So you can share this publicly. So this is a good option for those people that are on PCs or Android.
Wow.
And then if you want to delete the shared album, you can do that as well. So you're done with it. You can remove people. So I can go and remove this person. Basically the way that I've used this is when we go on a trip, I go, I'm pretty close to my family. And, when we go on trips together, sometimes what we'll do is we'll create a shared album, or I do this with my friends. I vacation with some of my friends, and I'll create a shared album. And then basically what we're able to do is, build a photos library of all of the different photos and all that kind of stuff. Now, I will say that sometimes it kind of backfires. I'm a photo hobbyist and all that. I try to do a decent job of taking photos, and then all of a sudden I get, the person that has the head cut off and all that in that shared album. So it doesn't always work the way that I want it to, but you have to deal with that. And then the last way you can share a photo, an album really, is through projects. So click on the plus. I'm going to go with the project here, new slideshow. Actually, there's only one photo in here, so we don't want that one. Let's see here. Okay, this is tulip time. All right, let's go with these. We got a bunch of tulips here. I'd like to create a slideshow with this. So basically what I do is I click on the plus here, I go slideshow, photos. And it's going to be a slideshow called tulips because that's what my album name is, but I could change it. You're going to see I have the tulips here. And here are all the photos and videos. If I had videos in here, they would be in there as well. And all I have to do is just click on this play button here. And it's playing that slideshow. But we do have other options. This is kind of boring. I want to change the music. I'd like to change how that's presented. Well, if we go over to the right, you're going to see that we have these different tools here. So what I'm able to do is select Ken Burns. We're all familiar with that. We have origami, reflection, sliding panels, vintage. Let's see what vintage looks like. I like that one. And I can go and change the music. See, here we do. Let's see here. Let's go. Well, I don't want to play any other music. This is going to be non-copyright, so we don't have to mess with that. But you can add your own music to it, and then you can adjust the timing. So how long is this slideshow? I could have it fit the music. So now I've just made a few different adjustments to it. Let's go and see what that looks like. I'm liking that one better. If I wanted them to go a little faster, I can go and click on the custom here. I want to add more photos to it. I know I have more photos of tulips. Click on the plus here, add photos. And I can go and find different photos in here to add. Here are my favorites. This is why I like to favorite everything. So I want to find all my favorite photos. So I'm not looking through all of my photos. I don't see a search. I wish there was a search in here. But, you know, what I am able to do is select photos. You can see these have a blue check mark, which means they're already included. So I know I don't want to include that one. But let's go in here and, yeah, sure. We'll just, I know it's not a tulip, but we'll just go with that one anyway. Let's just go with a few of these and I go and add those. And now I just added those and I can rearrange these. So let's say this was a birthday party. What you're able to do is just go in here and say, well, actually, we did that after that, or you can go and drag these around and place them where you want. And now I have a different timing is going to be a little bit different because I've added some different photos to it. But basically, I have a nice little slideshow there. And if I wanted to, this is going to be 1 minute, 22 seconds. What I'm also able to do is export this out and make a movie out of it. So then I can distribute that movie, put it on YouTube, or however I want to share it. So that's the slideshow. Pretty powerful. You know, I'm glad they left that one in. If you wanted to build books and calendars, which I think are kind of cool too, you do have to go to the App Store, but there's some good apps out there for that. So does anyone have any questions on that? Actually, that is the what I call the wrap up. So does anyone have any questions on that? Where are we at? Yeah.
I actually have a comment. When you drag your after you make an adjustment to a photo,
Mhm.
you hold the option key. When you drag it, it'll drag out the original.
All right, let's see here. Let's see what, so you're saying when I go to, I'm just going to go to edits here and let's go with this one here. So, oh, when you drag it out here
Yeah.
like that. Oh,
Yep.
really? Okay.
So go to the ones that you created into black and white.
Yeah. So well, let's just make this one black and white. So, so what he's saying is, I'm just going to go and apply a filter here, make it real quick. If I drag this out, it's going to do the black and white. But if I hold down the option key and drag it out, should be the color version, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there it is. Oops. Wrong one. There it is.
Oh.
Nice. Great. That's awesome.
And also one other thing is when you talked about the shared album,
Yeah.
If somebody doesn't pay for the extra iCloud, shared album does not count towards your iCloud storage.
Oh,
If you
good
only have
point.
5
Yes.
gigabytes.
And they are not high-res versions as well, so they don't take up a lot of space. They still look good, but they don't, they're not the original photo. So if you want to share the original photo, could be the 4 megabyte file, the 10 megabyte file, the 100 megabyte file, you know, however, if you want to share the original photo, you have to use the shared library. If with shared albums, like you were saying, with shared albums, it does reduce the size. Still looks good, but it's a reduced size. So
Yeah, they're JPEGs instead of, say,
Yep.
RAWs.
Yep. Mhm.
I do have a question for you. I've had an issue with photos where it renames all my photos to a weird like 0873BFC8-B12 and I've lost all my originals. What
I-
causes that?
No idea. What I would do with that, if that were to happen, and another good reason to know where that photos library is. I don't think this will fix it, but it's worth a shot. If you go into the pictures folder here.
Yeah, I've done that. The originals are not in there.
Okay. But if you duplicate it, you can repair the library. Are you familiar with that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a backup of most of my photos, so it's not a
Okay.
big issue, but
Yeah, no, I've
just the
not,
stuff that I have
that's
in there.
that's that magic that happens behind the scenes, and I'm not real familiar with, with all that kind of stuff. So.
Dan, do you know of a way to add more granularity to the straighten on the Mac? I noticed on iOS and iPad OS, you've got the long slider, but when it comes to the Mac straighten, I wish I could hold down a modifier key and slow that
Yeah,
down.
no, I know
The
what you're
shift
talking.
key may do that.
What's that? Let's try it.
Wonder
Try
if
the
that
shift
would-
key.
All right, so I go to crop here. And let's see here. Let's just see what it's like normal. So that's what it's like normal. And I hold the shift. Nope, shift key isn't
Nope.
doing anything. And this is for those that you're bringing up some good tips. Sometimes you just got to try these things. I wonder if nope, arrow key. Can I type in here? Nope.
I haven't had any success typing. I thought something would be, but sometimes you just want to make a micro adjustment.
Right.
And that's exactly what happens.
Turn it, grab the
Let's
corners.
try that. Yeah.
That might be a good idea. Yeah.
Nope. I'm going to tell you, it doesn't work. I'm trying that.
I think it's got to be the crop corner. Yeah. Does it?
Because but it's not. Usually you'll see that little
try
arrow
your
that,
Try shift or option key or something like that there.
nothing.
No,
I'm not getting anything.
It's all right.
No, good try though.
It's
Yeah.
interesting that it's actually better on the iPad. But
Mhm.
it's astonishing all the stuff that Apple's put in here. And this is where it's great to have you here and go through all this stuff, because it's stuff we would never go through on our own. And
Right.
You've shown us lots of stuff that I hadn't seen before in photos. And
good.
I generally
It's,
recommend to people, if you've shot on the iPhone, edit it in Apple Photos. It really
Yes.
does the best.
I don't use Lightroom or anything. I know people do, but there's a balance there, and I like the simplicity of photos. And when you go into Lightroom and all that, all of a sudden it adds another layer, and I'm just not that dedicated,
work
I
as
guess you
well.
could say.
I've
Yeah,
had friends who are pretty successful with Photoshop, but that's a lot more work.
it's a lot more work. Mhm.
Yeah.
And you can, excuse me, there is, if you go up to the more button here, you can get extensions. So I can get App Store here, and you can extend photos. So what I'm able to do is extend it with Affinity, which is very much like Photoshop, and make any
Sure.
adjustments in Affinity, and it'll show back in the Photos app. So you can do that kind of stuff. On the iPad and iPhone, there's Photoshop Express that you can get.
Right.
So you can do that with extensions, but I typically don't do anything like that. I did download and I paid for it, more for the Pro Raw. I do have an iPhone 14. Let's go to the App Store. But I haven't played around with it too much. A lot of photographers on the internet seem to like where this was going, darkroom. I don't know
Yeah,
if anyone's heard it.
I read a lot about it.
Yeah. So I actually have it and on my real computer. Not that this isn't a real computer, but my production computer. But I haven't played
Uh-huh.
around with it too much. But it gets into more of the detail that Photoshop has. Again, I don't think it has any layers.
But it looks like it's got masking though. People want that.
Yeah, it does do more. And it's I bought it because I don't remember what the price is, but it's relatively inexpensive. So, but it does more with
What
Pro
about-
Raw. I think the big thing with photos is it doesn't do a lot with Pro Raw. So,
Right.
We got a
What about
couple
the
of
healing
questions,
brush?
Melissa.
Yeah, switching over to the iPhone photos or iPad photos, is there a good healing brush extension or
No.
other app that does healing brush really well? Because that's the one tool
I would
that
I
is in
would
the Mac
say
version and not on the iPad or iPhone. And I really
the-
want a healing brush.
not natively on the iPad and iPhone. There's probably an extension, much like the photos on the Mac can get an extension. And I have no clue of what Apple is doing, but there's always with them and Google's really good at that kind of stuff. I'm just hoping that we'll see in probably 3 months if iOS 16 will have it. They haven't really done anything with that retouch, and
Yeah.
other companies are kind of leaving them in the dust. So I'm hoping maybe we
Pun
see.
intended.
Yeah.
Because I want it to clean up the dust.
Yeah. Right.
I don't have to vacuum before I take a picture of my dog. I want to just use the healing brush.
Yeah,
and get rid of all the
back in
fuzzies.
my publishing days, that's what I used to go into Photoshop and clean up shots that we had to scan. I mean, we're going back because we had to scan them, and oh yeah,
I just wish I could do it on the iPhone, like on the fly.
yeah.
Another comment I wanted to make, or something that I think would be helpful if you could demonstrate real quick, is how to change the time and location. I think you talked about the location, but for people who might be scanning older family photos from old photo
Great.
albums,
Yep.
that's one of the things that I always show clients, especially when they're scanning
Yep.
pictures. I said, well, if this picture was taken in 1924, well before we had computers, you can backdate it and change it to the actual date it is if you know what that is. Sometimes it's written on the back, and captions are really, really helpful, especially if someone's written on the back of the photograph. You scan it and then just go ahead and transcribe those captions right into the caption. I love that they've added captions in iOS and iPadOS. You just have to swipe up on the picture and you can start typing your caption. And that's another really great way to make things searchable. In addition to the year it was taken, if you actually change it, you can do it on all 3 platforms. You can edit the date and time and correct it. I know there's a lot of people that use professional cameras and they put an SD card in there, but then they forgot to format the time and date.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
a real good example.
Or they don't
was-
have the time and date set on their camera, right?
Yeah, the
just in
camera, that
general. It's not like
happens
it's talking
when-
to the satellite like the iPhone
Right.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a real
so
good
what-
example of that is a birth of a child. Like when my mom came out to visit, she was from the East Coast and she came out here, but didn't change the time on her camera, didn't know how, didn't even think of it. And so when we went to combine all of the pictures of the birth of my son that everybody had taken, they were all sorts of a mess. So I had to go in and but I could go in and backdate them and correct that. So now they're all, for posterity's sake, they're all correct.
Yeah, I'll show it. So what Melissa's talking about if you look at my iPad here, I swipe up and then you can see where it says add a caption. So that's what she's talking about there. We can't add titles. We can add captions. Ironically, on the Mac, when I look at a photo, it goes to the title. I can't add a caption here. So they're reversed. So just so you know that if you go and add captions, make sure you add the caption down here on the photo. So basically, I would dare say, if you add anything, add captions. Ignore the title, because titles are ignored by the iPad and iPhone as of right now. So there's you're going to be missing some information there. All right.
Also, if you double click on the time there, you could adjust the time.
Okay. So yeah,
Your
that's
info.
the next thing. So with the time, there's a couple different ways to do that. And basically, if I double click on this, what I'm able to do is go and change the time of that photo, like what Melissa was saying, and I didn't catch the other person's name, but you know, you just kind of click in here and you can go and you can adjust, you know, add a time to it and change time on it. Now, that's for one photo. You can also do it for multiple photos, like what Melissa was talking about. She had multiple photos that of her newborn, and they were all off. Well, all you have to do is just select them. So if I select those 5 photos there, I can actually go up to image here and adjust the date and time. We can also do that with the location. Oh, I can't. Okay, never mind. But anyway, we can adjust the date and time for all 5 photos at the same time. So I select this, and I just go and put the time that it was supposed to be, click on adjust, and it'll go and adjust it. Now this here map is not a map of the location of the photo. So it is not the GPS location. This is the time zone. So just be clear, you know, that you're not adjusting the time. When I see this, I'm like, oh, I can go adjust the location. No, you can't. All you can do is adjust the time zone. To adjust the location, you have to go into this little meta info window here, and then you can go and adjust the location.
Okay, we have a question from Mark Yarnish.
Yeah, I have a lot of photos on my computer, and I know there's a lot of duplicates. And I noticed when you clicked on the photo app, you had on the left side, it had duplicates. How do I find, I don't have that. So am I?
That
how
right
do I
there.
get that? Yes.
This is new. So are you using macOS Ventura?
No, I'm in Monterey.
Okay, that's why. This is
Okay.
this was added with Ventura. So basically what you're able to do is go and find all your duplicates, and yep.
Does it work in iCloud?
And
too?
what it does is it merges them. It'll go and keep the highest res version, and it'll merge any metadata. So if you have a caption in one and not a caption in the other, what it'll do is it'll put the caption and make sure that the caption is in the highest read version and delete the other one. That's basically how it merges them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Kevin?
Yeah, I'm just curious as to what software you're using to show your Mac and your iPhone.
I knew that one comes up quite a bit. So I use Ecamm. I don't know if, let's see here, anyone familiar with OBS? Does that sound familiar? Okay, gamers, it started out with gamers using it. I believe different organizations, churches use it. And essentially what, think of it as and Ecamm is very much like OBS is open source. Ecamm is not. You have to pay for it, and you know, it's just it's much more robust than what you know. It's paid app. You know, not to knock OBS. OBS is great, but it's just it's a cleaner app. So think of it as a mixer. Excuse me. The doctor's trying to figure out what this cough is, so I apologize for that. But basically, it's a mixer for all of my cameras per se. So here's an overview of my setup. What I have here is my demo iPad. So this is what I was demoing on, my MacBook Air, my iPhone, and all those are plugged into this guy here via USB, HDMI, you know, that kind of thing. I also have a teleprompter here. So I'm looking at everybody here, but there's a camera behind it that's feeding into my MacBook M1. So then I have an iPad here as well that's used as a second display kind of thing. But anyway, so all of these camera, the way that Ecamm is looking this, for those who are familiar with OBS, you know, I'm setting this up in different scenes. So when I click on my little buttons here, when I click on this one, it's going to show you my MacBook Air. It just switched to a different scene. When I click on this one, it goes to the Air. When I click, you know, so yeah.
Impressive.
Make it so number one.
Took me a while to really get it all down pat, but I've pretty much got it all squared away now. It goes even, so this allows me to do all the switching. I have a couple lights up there.
Are those Stream Decks?
Yeah, Stream Decks. And Stream Deck works with Ecamm. And then you're going to see over here, this is my keynote presentation with a green screen. So you're looking at me through a green screen. And what I'm able to do is put titles on there. So that's the wrap up there. And if we look here, I can see what the next slide is. So now, you know, if I wanted to go to the next slide, Stream Deck foot pedal, tap this with my foot. So I just want to thank you for inviting me. And don't forget that there's 25% off if you use the coupon code TMUG. But basically, I was able to do that just by tapping that with my foot.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dan. I did put your URL into the chat and encourage everybody to go there and see what Dan's offering and subscribe if you see stuff that you'd like to learn more about.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, I've been doing this for a long time, and there's a lot of people that are doing similar to what I do. You know, we all have our different styles. So, if you like what you see, you can actually view a lot of my videos on YouTube and all that for free. But this is how I make a living. So if you like what I see, just know that you're helping support a small business. It's just me and my wife. She works for Susan G. Coleman, and I do this. So you're just helping support small business.
Okay.
Cool.
And
Thanks,
there's
Dan.
also a link in the feedback form and in the chat for our feedback form. And we would appreciate it if all of the members would click on that, and that'll load it into Safari or your browser of choice, and then fill out that form. Dan, I have one more request for you.
Sure.
And would you please ask, it's time for us to draw our monthly door prize winner. And if you would ask your Siri to pick a number between 1 and 25, then that will pick our door prize winner.
All right. Excuse me. Let's see here. We'll go like this using my Stream Deck. And do I have? Pick a number between 1 and 25.
It's 7.
There you go, 7.
Okay. And
7 is the
that's,
magic number.
David Acklam, and he is the winner of our monthly door prize. And we now are going to do our annual prize. And I want to thank you again, Dan, for joining us. I know that it's getting late for you, and have a wonderful evening. And
Thank you.
we really appreciate you
Yes.
joining us.
Sure,
Have
I'm a late nighter, so this isn't, I would not be in bed. In all honesty, I would not. Both Beth and I are late nighters. This is not too late for us. So you
That
don't
must be
feel bad about
because
keeping
you're
us up.
that must be because you're a West Coaster.
Must be. I don't know.
Well, we'll have to get you back somehow.
I
We'd
want
be-
a tour of your desk some more.
We'd be delighted to have you join us again for another demonstration in the future.
Yeah, just let me know.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dan.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Dan.
And
Thank
now
you.
I'm going to switch it over to Kurt, who is going to, with his lovely assistant, make the selection for our annual prize of a $200 Apple gift card.
Wait, you said that was a mayonnaise jar. That looks more like a pretzel or a pickle
That's a really
jar.
big mayonnaise jar.
That's a lot of mayonnaise.
If I win, can you add a 0 to it?
Yes, we'll add a 0 in the beginning.
Good answer. Nice try, Kevin.
I got to see who wins this.
Not that one.
Dan, thank you very much. I never liked photos before, but you made it very interesting.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's not Photoshop, but I'm with you. Somebody said it earlier. It's there's more to it than what we think. Than
Oh,
what we know.
absolutely. It's come a long way.
Come a long way.
And Apple doesn't really advertise all the stuff
They
they're
don't.
adding from
Mm-mm.
And you
I
think it's
think you
only
can pretty much do
annually?
whatever you want with it. So
They don't incrementally with dot releases, they don't put stuff in there. It's mostly every year.
right.
You know, wait till your cat walks across the keyboard and like, oh, how'd you do that?
That happened to me when I was, so I also work with Naples Mac user
Okay.
group, and I was given a presentation in my keyboard. Generally, you're going to see that if you look at my little thumbnail, my keyboard is over here. The reason why I moved that over here is because what I used to do is have it right here, and the cat walked across,
Uh-huh.
and things just blew
Yep.
up. Like, I
I
don't know
can't
what
tell
she
you
did,
how
and
many
all of a
times.
sudden, all this thing here was all kind of messed up, and I'm in the middle of a presentation. Like, I had to,
Were flights delayed at the nearby airport?
yeah, well, then so
It was
I
a
get done, and
catastrophe.
I figure out how to continue, but I get done with it, and then all of a sudden, all I had to do was hit the escape key. Yeah.
Okay.
And somebody pretty clever. I'm not witty. I wish I was, but somebody witty is like, you just had a catastrophe. Like,
But sounds like a dad joke.
I like a good dad joke. So, all right,
Okay.
I am going to leave you, and we'll thank you, everyone. So,
Thank you,
Good night,
Dan.
Dan. Thanks
Thank
a
you so
lot.
much, Dan.
yeah.
Great stuff.
Terrific.
Okay, Kurt,
Yes.
we have a winner?
Yes, we have a winner from May of 2022, Bob Doms.
Well,
Yay,
Bob
Bob.
Dom.
Congratulations, Bob.
Very good. Thank you, everybody. Again, remember the feedback form. Please click on that link. And I am going to remember to save the chat
Yay.
right
Hey.
now.
Really?
Show in Finder.
Remember
There
to
it is.
find show and finder. Very good.
Okay.
Very good,
it's
Grasshopper.
it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. We'll send it off to Susan shortly. And congratulations to Bob Doms, and congratulations to David Acklam. I'll get those gift cards out to you sometime in the next 2-3 months. So don't worry about it. Remember we have a meeting coming up third Tuesday of April. And we're going to, that's right. In addition, Bob Doms, to the annual prize, we have a external hard drive for you as well. But you'll need 2 terabyte hard drive. Thank you, Ridge. But you'll need to coordinate with Ridge on a pickup time and place if you want to meet at a undisclosed mutual location, and get that delivered to you. But I'll take care of the gift card. So I hope everybody has a good rest of the month and a good equinox, even though it's actually happened like 2:30 yesterday. So are there any things that I forgot, any questions that we need to take care of before we close it up?
We're in good shape.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you so much.
Have a
Night,
good
everybody.
evening, everyone.
Good night.
fun.
Adios.
Sayonara.